Because the Ohtani thing, as we sit on it now, so much is happening. So much has happened, I should say. Now it seems to be a bit of a resting state. And my in on this story with you guys, after seeing his press conference, after seeing the reports from ESPN and other places about the back and forth as to was Ohtani robbed, as he is now claiming, having $4.5 million stolen from him, or was he actually betting on the game? And what game it is, of course, not baseball according to Ohtani, and not anything according to Ohtani, but according to the translator in question, his best friend, personal assistant, no longer his best friend ostensibly, was other sports that are not baseball. All of that, it leads me to ask you guys, losing track of $4.5 million. This is, again, rich guys talking about rich guys stuff. How plausible is that? Could you imagine that happening?
Let's talk about this from an athlete standpoint. I would say yes. There are players who I've had who, if you asked them what their balance was in their account, they would say they didn't know. I've had players, including my favorite second baseman, a guy named Luis Castillo, who was not aware that his paycheck was not being deposited because he thought he had direct deposit and he had not signed up for it. So his paychecks were building up in his locker. And it happened that our finance department contacted me and said, Luis Castillo has about $6 million of checks he has not deposited. And so we went up to him and he said, oh, Papi, I had no idea. Literally, that's what he said. So is it possible that Ohtani doesn't know the balance? Yes. Is it possible he doesn't pay his own bills? 100%. There's people who pay firms or individuals to pay their bills for them. Easy peasy. Is it possible that he's off by $4.5 million with his balance knowledge? 100%. He's got money to do whatever he wants whenever he wants to. Is it possible that his account wired money to an illegal bookmaker without Ohtani knowing, or one of his agents? That is impossible.
It seems quite implausible. I have a lot less money than Mr. Ohtani, but nobody can get to my money and wire $10,000 out of the account without them calling me. I cannot imagine you'd have some system set up, or that somebody at the bank didn't go, oh, this is the ninth. Is it 9? This is the ninth $500,000 check going to some party that I can't find in the yellow pages.
It's literally absurd. And what bothers me is that Ohtani did this statement. And you as a journalist, I would assume you would not have gone to that once you were not allowed to ask questions and you realized it was not a press conference. 70 of your colleagues still went, which upset me. I wanted them all to reject it and not show up because all I did was read a statement. That's not a press conference.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So that's insulting to journalists, number one. Number two, he didn't answer the very simple question that he could have answered, which is, I gave this guy ePay total authority, and the bank I use is Citibank, and he's been doing wires for me, for 6 years. That would have been something he could have said, but he didn't. And that's the biggest question, not did he lose track of $4.5 million.
Yeah, I think the question to me is just how plausibly scammable is Shohei Ohtani when it comes to a guy in his interpreter / personal assistant / best friend who's been with him since Japan, who has falsified other parts of his resume we now know, didn't graduate from UC Riverside, didn't translate for Hideki Okajima, the former reliever with the Red Sox and the Yankees. So this guy is shady, and now the question is, Ohtani, you mentioned these phone calls from your bank when you're trying to wire money, right? If Ohtani is getting incoming phone calls of a financial nature, is his literal translator the person answering the phone talking in English to the bank? And is that an excuse, a plausible excuse, given the specific context of guy relying on someone else as his, essentially his ward when it comes to important matters in his life in English?
Yeah, this would be fantastic if the bank said in English, hey, we're wiring $500,000 to John Cocktoast in the bookie. And the interpreter says to Ohtani, yes, this wire for $50,000 is going to the Audi car company. And he says that in Japanese. Ohtani says yes. The bank hears yes. And then $500,000 is out the door. No.
Well, look, the question, though, but it lines up with a larger through line, which you spoke to, both of you guys spoke to, which is that actually having lots of money does not mean you are financially sophisticated. or diligent or detail-oriented.
Almost the opposite.
And that's what I want people to understand here, is just that there is no correlation in all of these industries with money that you actually know what you're doing with your money second to second.
Yeah, and I want to make sure, I don't think either you or I are suggesting that Ohtani is guilty of doing anything other than being duped in a way, right? I mean, I don't think the natural...
Do you know?
No, I do not know.
I don't either.
But
So the question,
I
what you're
just
speaking
don't,
to,
John.
right, is
I'm not willing to say it yet because I don't buy the story that the wires, if the wires came from his account, I'm not buying the fact that he or his advisors weren't aware of it.
Right. So look, the nuance is, was Ohtani doing this to cover up his own bets? Was he doing it to help a friend knowingly, which was what, of course, the interpreter claimed with Ohtani's camp's blessing initially to ESPN in a 90-minute interview. And then they realized, shit, we shouldn't say that because it's an illegal bookmaker. And now is all of this simply to clean up that, to sever that connectivity that
Certainly
Ohtani personally
feels that
has?
way. His whole statement was merely he was re-saying what he had said after they changed their story. That's all he did.
Right.
That's why there's an investigation. And it's not just MLB. We're talking about the IRS. There's so many financial implications to what is their story. And the fact that there's a theft, there's been a report now that there's people looking into this, ESPN and other real journalists, investigative journalists.
Everyone.
They can't find anyone who's looking into this theft, any authority, according to an ESPN report.
That Ohtani's camp has personally gone to.
Because they said that, hey, we
So the
turned
IRS
this
is
over
looking
to the
into it,
authorities.
but it's not because Ohtani's camp reportedly has asked them to.